Hi, I'm jack.shilley and welcome to this week's episode. In this week's episode I'm going to be planting out the first of my winter vegetable crops, purple sprouting broccoli. It's now getting on in August, so I'm looking for vegetable plants that are going to provide me with a crop later into autumn and into winter as well. In order to plant this, I'm going to be removing the peas which have now finished for the season, and they're going to be replaced by these plants. I was given these plants as little seedlings a couple of weeks ago and they've grown on really well, and they're now at this stage and I'm now going to plant them out into the ground. So this is how the vegetable plot is looking, and what we're going to be focusing on is this top corner here where I'm going to be planting out that purple sprouting broccoli. The first task that I've got to do is to remove these old peas. Now there's a little bit of new growth at the top, but really they've had it. And I'm going to be first of all taking out this frame, then I'm going to be digging the actual plants out, clearing the site, and I'm going to be adding lots of nice fertile compost to this top corner to ensure the purple sprouting broccoli has the nutrients and the lovely moist well draining soil that they need to thrive. So now that I've finished the main bulk of the weeding, cleared out a lot of the large debris and stones, I'm now ready to add the compost to the area. So I'm just using a general purpose compost, which is fairly cheap, and I'm just going to generously add it to that top corner, like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my hoe and just hoe it into soil underneath. Now this is really good because my soil is quite poor and quite sort of clumpy, so what the compost helps to do is it helps to break it up, loosen up the soil, add some really good nutrients which the plants all need to the soil, and creates a really nice planting area for seedlings such as the purple sprouting broccoli that I'm going to be putting in here. Now that's pretty nicely mixed in, I'd say. Just level it off a little bit. Like that. Give it a light hoeing over again just to loosen it up. And then that's ready for planting. Okay, so when you're planting out your broccoli or you're sowing your broccoli, it's always good to leave about a foot or about 30 centimetres between each plant. So, I mean, I'm only going to get maybe a triangle of 3, possibly 4 at a push in this top corner here. Really not very big at all, but I'm going to see how it goes. I might have to remove a plant if they start getting too big. But I'm going to put my first one a foot away from the chilies there. Then the next one can go down here. And then the next one up here next to the greenhouse. And I'll probably say that's all I'm going to get away with. I could put another one there, but then it's going to start crowding out the chilies, or the chilies are going to start crowding it out. So that nice spacing of 3 in that triangle there is ample, and we'll see how that goes. I'm going to pop the first one in. Now, they don't want to be too deep because then they're going to start to rot. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create my hole using this fork here, which just helps to break up and loosen the soil as you're digging down, because it's quite tough here where we've got the conifer behind, so that just helps break it up. And that's about the right depth you want it. You want it to be just a little bit deeper than the puddle that's in currently. And now they probably, looking at these, they haven't rooted right out the bottom yet, so there's going to be a lot of excess soil, which is fine because they like to be planted in the soil from which they've come from. Now, that's come out quite nicely. I'm going to pop that in there. And then just gently backfill around it like that. And then I'm going to repeat that process with the rest of them, and then hopefully, I mean it's a bit dry at the moment, so I'm going to give them a quick water in, but then they'll really start to take off and develop And then I'd probably say around September time we start to see the broccoli starting to develop, ready for an autumn, early winter harvest later on in the year. And then once they're planted, I would recommend protecting them from slugs. Now, unfortunately, the broccoli, any type of broccoli and vegetables that you're putting in this time of year are susceptible to heavy slug damage, and slugs will devour seedlings completely. It is advised, I'm using these organic slug and snail killer pellets, which I'm going to slightly scatter around. Copper wire or crushed eggshells around the plants, all good stuff, and see what works best for you if you'd rather not use slug pellets. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to scatter them around these broccoli plants like that, just to stop them from getting damaged. Now what I've also got as just a backup is I'm keeping some of the leftover seedlings, so I've got probably about 6 left over. I'm going to keep them just in case anything bad does happen. We get some torrential rain, they get damaged, they don't form properly, or they get devoured by slugs. I've kept some spare so they're ready to go if anything happens to these ones, which is always a good thing to do. And then the last task that I'm going to do is just very gently water them in. They were quite wet in the pots they were, so I'm not too fussed about how much I'm giving them, but just enough so that the soil around them settles like that. So that's what we've got time for in this week's episode. I've shown you how to plant out the first of my winter vegetables. I don't have many winter vegetables to plant out, but there are still a few coming up. So subscribe so you don't miss any of those videos. Purple sprouting broccoli is really easy to grow. I didn't sow them from seed this year, but from what I've gathered, I've transplanted them into slightly larger pots. They've done really well, they've taken well, and I've now planted them out. Really simple process. Enrich the site with lots of organic matter, compost, that type of thing. Scatter some slug pellets around because you don't want your seedlings to be devoured by the slugs straight away, and then gently water in if the weather's dry. If the weather's forecast to rain, then I wouldn't suggest watering them in. They'll be fine as it is. And as always, if you have any experiences or questions that you'd like to share with everyone else on the channel, please post them in the box below. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Thanks for watching. See you next time.